Well, hi, everybody. I'm David Poulsen, and this is In Conversation, our series of chats with, well, folks who are in and around Claresholm who have great stories to tell, and it's all brought to us, of course, by the Claresholm Public Library. And I'm very excited because this time around, our special guest is Susan Bohnet, one of our very successful and one of our very prolific writers here in Claresholm. And Susan, welcome to In Conversation.
Thank you, David.
So let's go back to the beginning. I know people are always interested in the journey that artists take to get to where they are and their passion for what they do. So why don't you tell us how your interest in writing and your actual writing got started?
Okay. I was a closet writer for a lot of years, and I had notebooks full of writing that I would hide away, and very few people saw them for many, many years. And then I started writing kind of family humor type of columns after I had my first child, and went from writing fiction to kind of this family humor, and was lucky enough to have a magazine in Medicine Hat that wanted to publish those. And I think I had one or two a month in the magazine. And at that time, it felt like a big deadline that I had to have these two columns ready every month. Then living in St. Paul, Alberta, I started writing the column for the newspaper there. And that was a weekly column. And so that felt like a panic for a while too. And after moving to Claresholm, I was lucky enough to be able to write the Family Frenzy column here. And in between all of that, I was also writing fiction because I didn't quite get away from that and really loved that. When I was in university, I took a lot of different courses, not sure what I wanted to do. And but I always loved the writing, and I knew I wanted to write, but I didn't think that was a serious thing to be. So I would take on the side all of these Shakespeare classes and these writing sort of classes until they told me you can't take any more of these. And so I finished a degree. But then, so then it was just a matter of back in the olden days, mailing off manuscripts to different publishers and agents, and was able to find an interested editor at a writing conference, and that was how I sold my first book.
And that first book was?
That was a young adult novel called My Life as a Troll. Okay,
and I have it right here. Do you have a copy? Because I do, and we certainly want
I do. Yeah. Our copies can look at each other.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us a little bit about that experience of that first book and when it comes out and the excitement around that for you.
It really, really was a thrill to have it finally in a physical form where somebody might want to read it and pick it up at the library or in a bookstore or online. With publishers, I found out that nothing happens quickly. And from the time that I sold that book, it was at least 2 years before the book came out. And there was several rounds of editing that were involved in that, but also just, I guess my book was not the only book that they were worried about at that time. So it took a long time before it finally came out. And that was in 2014. That one finally came out.
And so now how many books are there in total as of this point in time?
With the new series that I've just finished, there's now 10 books that are out.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about, because you've written both for young adult and for adults. Do you have a preference, or is there a big difference between the two? Do you find?
Yes and no, and I really do enjoy and love both, and a lot of advice to writers is to just stay in one genre and find your audience and just write to them. But I really love doing both, and yeah, so I've got the young adult, I've got a few young adult novels and a few adult novels, and just love them both.
So what would be the challenge? There's different challenges. I mean, it's a different audience. What would be the biggest difference between writing for a young adult audience and adults? Or is there a difference?
I guess some things have changed since I was a teenager, and so yeah, just trying to be relatable and whatnot to a new generation. I have 5 kids, so I have that ready access to some research,
Right.
and so that I think helped as well. And then having my own kids reading my work and telling me what they think about it helps. So that's one of the challenges is writing to not necessarily the teenager I was, but the teenagers that are out there.
Yeah, getting that voice is so important, I would think. All right, well, let's talk then about the new series, because that's exciting. 4 books. Boy, that's now, are they all released at the same time, or how did you deal with that?
Well, I wanted to write an adventure sort of series, and I wanted it to be to have a strong love story, but also to have this adventure and that. So I love a little bit of fantasy thrown in. So the series is called the Viking Setstokkr series, and it is a time travel romance adventure. And so doing the 4 books, I really wanted to have them come out quite quickly together. So the plan was for this rapid release. And so when I finished the first book, I really had to hold myself back from releasing it, because I wanted to do this rapid release. And so they started coming out at the end of 2020, and they're all out by the end of last month, which was April of 2021.
And of course, where can readers find their copies and get started on this series?
As far as right now, there is a couple of places in Claresholm that are carrying it. The Attic and Gallery Gifts. It's also available on Amazon. They get it out remarkably quickly when you order online. I've been really, really impressed at how quickly those books will come for readers. I have spoken with the library before the whole pandemic thing, and they were wanting to carry it as well. So eventually it may be at the Claresholm Library or in this library system. But for now, it's Amazon and the Attic and Gallery Gifts.
Now, let's talk a little bit about, I mean, you said, I think, 10 books in total, and now the new series of 4. So what's next for Susan Bohnet?
I was actually looking through all the manuscripts that I finished writing at least a first draft of, and there's like 11 books that I've written that I haven't finished. So I think,
wow.
Yeah, so I'm like, man, that's more than I've published. So yeah, there's a few in there that were early novels that probably should never see the light of day, but there were some later ones that I still love the story and I still love the characters. One of them is a series that I've started that's a small town romance, and that one is the one I was working on before I got lured away by the Vikings. And so I think that's what I'll focus on next.
Well, that's great. Now, one more time, just tell us again the title of the new series so people can be watching for it.
Okay, the series is the Viking Setstokkr series. Now, the Setstokkr is a weird word, and it means a beam, like a support beam in their huts, in their lodges, and they were often covered in runes, and they were very like it was a spiritual thing and a good luck sort of thing. And actually, historically, the story is Leif Erikson, and so I've taken parts of that from actual history. And this Setstokkr was the cause of bloodshed, and it was, pretty important to them. And so it's called the Viking Setstokkr series. The first book is called The Viking Time Traveler.
Well, that kind of leads us into, that's a great start, because you mentioned that it's a time travel story and some fantasy elements in there as well. I tell you what, it sounds like a great read, or 4 great reads, as a matter of fact. So I want to wish you all the very best of success with your series and with all of your writing, Susan.
Thank you very much, David.
And thanks so much for joining us as well on In Conversation. As we wrap up our conversation with Susan Bohnet today, I want to remind all of our viewers to make sure that you check on the Clares Home Public Library YouTube channel. You'll find this conversation and a whole lot more as well. And so long until next time, I'm David Poulsen saying so long, everybody. And again, a big thank you to our guest, Susan Bohnet.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.